Hey, good afternoon. It is now 4:07 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up top of the hour, Jason Miyares, the current Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Virginia, just announcing his reelection bid. We'll discuss that with him and the incoming attacks from the left. And then at 5:30, Brian Kavanaugh is here from the Heritage Foundation. We'll get his reaction to that big FEMA hearing on the Hill today. Remember, FEMA going out of its way to hurt Trump supporters in the wake of a storm. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Congress, the source of so much trouble. An incoming congressman would like to be considered a congresswoman. He wants to use the ladies' room when he arrives. And in South Carolina, Congresswoman Nancy Mace doesn't really like that at all. This Democrat, Delaware Representative-elect Sarah McBride, is a fellow whose real name is Tim. It's Tim McBride. But Tim is arriving dressed as a woman, would like to use the ladies' room in Congress, and Nancy Mace is opposed to this. Doesn't want that to happen at all, and rightfully so. And she's been just very aggressively just fighting here to say that can't happen. Take a listen to some of Nancy Mace. This is Nancy Mace walking the halls of Capitol Hill today.
The radical left is calling me an extremist for being a feminist, fighting to protect the rights of women and girls. If being a feminist makes me an extremist or a bigot or a monster, I am totally here for it, because I'm going to fight like hell for every woman and every little girl across this country to protect you and keep you safe.
Reporters confronted Nancy Mace today and demanded answers as to why she is such a bigot.
So if that being a feminist makes me an extremist, I'm totally here for it.
Is this effort in response to Congresswoman McBride's coming to Congress?
Yes, and absolutely, and then some. I'm not going to stand for a man, if someone with a penis is in the women's locker room, that's not okay. And I'm a victim of abuse myself. I'm a rape survivor. I have PTSD from the abuse I've suffered at the hands of a man. And I know how vulnerable women and girls are in private spaces. So I'm absolutely 100% going to stand in the way of any man who wants to be in a women's restroom, in our locker rooms, in our changing rooms. I will be there fighting you every step of the way.
During a press conference today, Speaker Mike Johnson was asked about this and at first gave a very milquetoast answer.
Mr. Speaker, is freshman-elect Sarah McBride a man or a woman?
Look, I'm not going to get into this. We welcome all new members with open arms who are duly elected representatives of the people. I believe it's a command that we treat all persons with dignity and respect.
But then later, he stepped back up to the microphone after social media reacted, and he said this.
Hello, everybody. I just want to make a statement for all of you here and be very clear. I was asked a question this morning at the leadership gaggle, and I rejected the premise because the answer is so obvious. For anybody who doesn't know my well-established record on this issue, let me be unequivocally clear. A man is a man, and a woman is a woman. And a man cannot become a woman. That said, I also believe, that's what Scripture teaches, what I just said, but I also believe that we treat everybody with dignity.
All right, joining me now, Michael Knowles, the host of the Michael Knowles Show at the Daily Wire. Michael, great to have you back on the show, sir.
Great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
So, Nancy Mace is mounting this fight. Speaker Johnson looks like he's coming around to it, But boy, it's nice to see that members of Congress aren't really suffering the nonsense quite as much anymore.
That's right. Nancy Mace deserves a lot of credit. I first was plugged into this story about a week or so ago, and I couldn't believe that nobody was talking about it. And for the first time ever, you had a trans-identifying man be elected to Congress. I guess everyone was so focused on the Trump landslide, they didn't pay attention. But at the time, I did a long Twitter thread that went viral, and I said, this is going to become a big issue because this man is obviously going to try to use the women's bathroom, and it's going to put Republicans in a tough spot. The Republicans have exactly two options. They can allow this guy to violate women's rights and enter the women's bathroom over the objections of women, and in doing so, they will be implicitly accepting the trans ideology, or they can say, no, sorry, Buster, we're going to be nice to you, but you can't just go violate women's spaces, and you're not allowed to traipse into the women's bathroom. And then the press will call them mean. And those are the only two options. There's
Yes.
really not much else they can do here. So I said, look, leadership has to hold firm on this. Will a member of Congress actually stand up? And it took a few days before we heard very much. And Nancy Mace maybe was working on this in the background. Nancy Mace came out and said, well, of course, this is completely insane. And really the only scandal here, the only extremism as far as I'm concerned, is that every other member of the GOP in the House has not come to her defense. She is 100% right about this. I hope and I trust that Speaker Johnson will end up on the right side of this, and I think he is coming around even in his rhetoric on it. But this is a no-brainer.
Yes.
As a matter of justice, this man has no right to use the women's bathroom. And as a matter of politics, the vast majority of Americans reject the radical trans ideology. So I expect Republicans to line up and do the right thing.
And the sooner you arrive at acknowledging reality, the easier it is to sort through all of these issues, Michael Knowles, as they confront you.
Of course. The nice thing about sticking with the truth is you don't have to get caught up in all sorts of confusion.
Yes.
And the truth here is plain as day. A man can't become a woman can't become a man. I said earlier when Speaker Johnson was catching a lot of flack for his initial milquetoast response, I said, look, I don't mind if Speaker Johnson doesn't want to take the reporter's bait, as long as he does the right thing. And I hope he will do the right thing, and it seems like he will. But this is not a complex issue. There are nuanced, complicated questions in politics, in a nation of 330 million people and a global empire. But should a man be able to enter the women's room? That isn't one of them. And so Tim McBride, this Delaware congressman who identifies as a woman, he has come out and he said that he wants respect from his colleagues and people should be kind to him. And I have no doubt that his future Republican colleagues will show him quite a lot of respect. But respect goes both ways, okay? And I think all of the women on Capitol Hill who have their own bathrooms for a reason, who have their own changing areas, say, for a reason, they're not just going to give up all of their rights to accommodate the fantasies and disordered perceptions and desires of a member of Congress.
Well, and the other piece here, as you point out, is that they're all open to criticism, especially being people who wield power for the country and being public figures. But I guarantee that the Tim McBride character will never receive half the animus that Nancy Mace has received as a Republican member of Congress. And in fact, here's an expression of that. Today, Nancy Mace shared a video of a man who says that he, too, is a transgender woman, and he says that he wants to kill Nancy Mace. Take a listen to this.
This video goes out to Congresswoman Nancy Mace. Congresswoman Nancy Mace, I hope that one day I do find you in that women's bathroom and I grab your ratty-looking hair and drag your face down to the floor while I repeatedly bash it in until the blood's everywhere and you're dead. Thank you. I hope that Nancy Mace receives this message well.
So you look at this whole story and you say, okay, tell me again, who's supposed to be the victim here?
Of course, but this is an upside-down world. So if you're the sort of person who thinks a man can become a woman, then, yeah, you're going to mistake the victim for the perpetrator here. There's no question about it. I mean, by definition, if you think that you are the opposite sex, there's a defect with your intellect. You're suffering some kind of mental or psychiatric illness. And so we're willing to be accommodating to people. I'm not even suggesting Tim McBride should be expelled from Congress, although he manifestly, is not fit to be a member of Congress. But of course, if we took mental defects as a disqualifying feature, probably
Yes.
we'd lose half of our government. So, of course, I'm not calling for anything that radical. I think the radicalism here is the people who say that women are no longer able to have their own spaces because men are making greater demands, men who clearly don't have much grip on reality.
Yeah, and also there's no other health condition that I'm aware of where deception is a required feature of it. I was looking, for instance, the fact that this guy's name is actually Tim McBride. Do you realize that it's a bit challenging to establish that on a cursory Google search? I was looking this up. I was saying, what's Sarah McBride's real name? And Wikipedia refuses to tell you. If you go to the Wikipedia thing, because Wikipedia has a policy against what they refer to as dead naming. And in fact, if you go to the edit history of Sarah McBride's Wikipedia page, which I did because I'm insane, and I'm looking through this, I'm seeing that there have been countless people who've attempted to include that real piece of information, and it keeps on being purged by Wikipedia's editors who are refusing to acknowledge that there's a person called Tim McBride, Michael Knowles.
Of course, but this is part of the key, and it's why Republicans. I know we want to be nice. Nobody wishes ill on this guy or anybody else, but we can't indulge in delusion. It's not good for anyone, including the people who identify this way, because the deception here requires that we call this man by a woman's name and we use female pronouns. We refer to him as a trans woman, quote unquote, and the reason for that is, if someone is a trans woman, they obviously have the right to use the women's bathroom. That's a type of a woman, right? But he's not a trans woman. He's a man who is confused. If someone's name is Sally or Sarah or Sheila, that's the sort of person who probably uses the women's bathroom. But a guy whose name is Tim, he doesn't get to use the women's bathroom. Yeah. What the left has done, I made this point in my book a few years ago, Speechless, what the left does is use euphemisms to win debates before they're even had. So if you call an illegal alien, he obviously has no right to be here. If you all of a sudden call him a future undocumented dreaming American or something like that, well, then in people's perception, they do have a right to be here. And so it seems like a trivial matter, the bathrooms and the pronouns and names or whatever, but the left knows it's not a trivial matter. That's why they invest so much time and energy in it. That's what wins debates.
Sure, and these are considered kind of the innocent provocations, but they're used as a predicate for all sorts of awful things. That's how you end up with men in women's prisons who are there in some cases for actually committing sexual abuse in the first place, subsequently committing sexual abuse on women who are there in the prisons. This is how you end up with boys on girls sports teams, injuring them for the rest of their lives. This is how you end up mutilating children as if this is some sort of consistent and legitimate piece of health care. So these are the moments where you should step up and say, no, let's be really clear about what this is, because all sorts of awful things spill out of it if you don't.
That's right. It reminds me of the old George Carlin quote. He said that if fascism comes to America, it won't be with jackboots and black shirts. It will be with a smiley face T-shirt and Nike sneakers. Smiley, smiley. And that's so often what we're hearing from the left is, oh, just be nice, be accommodating, be respectful, be kind. Well, what is kind about subjecting a woman who has herself been the victim of sexual violence, in this case, Congressman Nancy Mace? What is kind about forcing her to share private spaces with men in women's-only spaces? What is kind about castrating a little kid? What is kind about forcing a girl on a volleyball team to be concussed and paralyzed, in fact, because she's forced to compete against a man? It is not kind to force people into fantasies. And it certainly is not kind to force people to lie, which is what this transgender agenda is forcing upon all of us.
Yeah, for sure. Michael Knowles, one of my favorites. So grateful, as always, to chat with you. Thank you, sir, for being on the program today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. A pleasure as always.
That's Michael Knowles of the Michael Knowles Show. All right, line one, Donna calling from Texas now. Donna, you're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince. I love your show.
Thank you.
I like to listen, live. And I'll tell you, I don't usually call radio shows, but I have to say, as much as I sympathize with Miss Mace, the rest of us have been going through this for years. Mm-hmm. And no one's done anything. I'm sorry that she has to share her bathroom, but I travel cross country a lot.
Yes.
I have to look at every stall before I go in and pay attention to who's coming in and out in the middle of the night or random times during the day. Because I've gone into a women's restroom and there's a guy. I'm by myself in the middle of nowhere. I'm sorry, you're at least in a congressional bathroom. If you scream, someone's going to be there to help you.
Yeah, and then in the incidents we've seen where women have experienced this, it's always the women who are yelled at, where they're kicked out of the gym, or they're treated like garbage for raising concerns,
or arrested, or kicked out of the YMCA, or there's a lot of small businesses that had to redo bathrooms, get rid of bathrooms, rename people, do a lot of construction, costs a lot of money. And as much as I sympathize, and boy, I wish they could do something, but what about the rest of us?
I know. Well,
Sorry. I really feel no sympathy.
Well, Donna, this is what we should do. Donna, this is what we need to do with all these issues. Every time some sort of awful thing afflicts the country, we should force the ruling class to have to live with it. This is why it was awesome to send illegals to Martha's Vineyard. Send a plane load of illegal aliens to Martha's Vineyard, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, wait a second, this is awful. And then they're deporting everybody off their little island. Send all of the illegals to Congress. Send a bunch of them just right into the center of Congress. We'll have a little insurrection. They welcomed it anyway. They're the ones who brought them in. So we'll send them right to Congress. They can live with the consequences of their actions. And here Congress now has to deal with this. You've been dealing with it for years. The women of America have been dealing with it for years. And now the women of Congress get to deal with it as well. So now all of a sudden, now it's a problem worth addressing.
Absolutely. And I hope it does get addressed because it needs to end. Yeah. It really does need to end.
Sanity needs to prevail in the end. I really hope it does. Donna, thank you for the call and for listening.
In Congress.
I know. We need more of it. I like some fight. We got some fight today. Thank you, Donna. That's Donna in Texas. I appreciate that call. It's Joe Biden's birthday tomorrow. I know you were planning your whole year around it. But a reporter today attempted to catch his attention by shouting out to him, happy birthday, happy birthday. Can you answer a question? It's hilarious audio. I'll play it for you coming up. They're just trying to get Biden to meander over to the rope line to chat with the reporters. What a disaster. He's concentrating very, very intently on just getting one foot in front of the other so he can board Air Force One. It's a real challenge for him. Why are we putting him in charge of whether or not we go into World War III again? Stay with us. A lot more ahead. Hey, good afternoon to you. It's 4:36 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up top of the hour, we'll talk to the Attorney General of Virginia, Jason Miyares. And then at 5:30, Brian Kavanaugh from the Heritage Foundation will break down that FEMA hearing today on Capitol Hill, as the head of FEMA is called in to explain why her agency was ignoring the homes of Trump supporters in the wake of those disasters in the southeast United States. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Man, Congresswoman Nancy Mace is really going all in on this, stopping men from going into the women's bathroom on Capitol Hill. You heard her moments ago. I played some audio of her talking to the press, a bunch of questions being thrown at her. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Are you saying you're trying to stop men from using the women's room? Yes, that's what I'm saying. Unashamedly, that's what I'm saying. Here's a version of that from ABC. She later stepped up. She was walking outside the Capitol, and an ABC reporter got in her face and started drilling her. Why are you such a bigot? Why are you such a bigot? And here's how that went.
The question is, with your piece of legislation about banning women from using...
100%, yes.
My question...
Listen to the frame. Banning women from using, or as he was about to finish, the women's room. That is not what she's advocating for. She's banning men from using the women's room, which should already be banned. I don't even know why this is a point.
It doesn't go far enough. I'll be filing more bills.
You have said that it was created in response to Congresswoman-elect McBride.
100%. And
Congressman Tim McBride.
But should legislation be created targeted at one specific person?
It doesn't mention anyone in the legislation, but
you've said it was aimed at her.
No, I have said it's a result of this.
Our media suck. Don't they suck? They suck. That guy, you know what he's trying to do? He's trying to bait her into admitting to creating a bill of attainder, that they're passing a piece of legislation designed to attack one person. That's what this is for. It's a targeted attack on one person. No, it's using the arrival of this person, a person who says he's a woman. It's using his arrival as the predicate to banning all such activity going forward. No men in the women's room.
I'm not going to allow biological men into women's private spaces. I will stand in the brink and stand in the way of anyone on the radical left who thinks that it's okay for a penis to be in a women's locker room or a bathroom or a changing room. Hell no. I am not going to stand for it. And the Speaker said it would be in the House rules package. If it's not, I will be ready with a motion, a privileged motion to force a vote on this. This is not okay. I'm a survivor of rape. I'm a survivor of sexual abuse. And I'm not going to allow any man in any female private private spaces.
Now, Speaker,
end of story. And by the way, I'm getting death threats from men pretending to be women. Why is it that these crazy people, the insanity, the radical left, are willing to kill women over a man's right to be in a women's restroom?
Speaker Johnson has said he wants to treat every new member with the words dignity and respect. Forcing this congressperson to go into a male restroom, is that dignity and respect?
Forcing him to use the appropriate restroom isn't respectful.
Forcing women to share private spaces with men is not dignity and not respect. And I'm absolutely going to stand in the way of anyone who thinks it's okay for a man to be in our locker room, in our changing rooms, in our dressing rooms, in women's bathrooms. And in fact, if you agree with that, you're crazy, because that's not okay. It's not okay.
Congresswoman,
Thank you, Congressman. We're going to peel away from this conversation, Kira. So a little bit of the context.
Oh, here he goes. Now, I can't wait to hear this. I haven't even heard this yet, but I can assure you it will consist of deceit.
What we were just talking about, and I'm going to have my cameraman step out of the active driveway here, was that Nancy Mace put forward this piece of legislation. It was aimed, she said, although the name is not in the legislation, at a new member of Congress, Sarah McBride of Delaware.
Tim McBride.
Who is a transgender woman. He's
a man.
Said that the legislation would prevent women from using
men from using the women's room,
restrooms, and vice versa in the United States Capitol. Speaker Johnson has said, he made a statement earlier today where he said he believes a, quote, man is a man and woman is a woman, but he also called for, as you heard me ask the congressman about, dignity and respect.
That's right. Treat women with dignity and respect.
For new members of Congress, and that would include this new member of Congress, Sarah McBride.
Who has a perfectly good restroom awaiting him. It's the men's room.
From Delaware, who is a transgender woman. All of that to say, this is now an issue that Congress is forced to grapple with here, and one that they've never been forced to grapple with before, because Sarah McBride is the first trans person elected to the United States House of Representatives.
Well, that we're aware of. You know, you never know with some of these.
It's very much unclear at this hour what Mike Johnson plans to do, although Nancy Mace is under the impression that her resolution or something of the like will now go into the new House of Representatives rules package, which would theoretically be voted on and approved by the next Congress come January.
All right. Wow. So, again, that was the first time I heard that assessment. And did you see how full of deceit it was? Every other sentence was a lie. And then these are the same people who get all upset. They're like, I can't believe Trump calls us fake news. This is an attack on journalism. No, it's just an accurate assessment of what you're delivering. Just fraudulence, never-ending fraudulence. Chris is calling in from Silver Spring, line 4. Hello, Chris. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Good afternoon, Vince. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, Chris. What's on your mind?
Good. So here's what I want to know is how come the stories that we always have to have rammed down our throat are regarding transgender men thinking they're women fighting to use women's bathroom? Why is it you never hear about a transgender man, a woman, fighting for her right to use a man's bathroom? There's got to be some type of deviant draw on the male side of that for people who believe that that's what they are, that they continue to make them fight like this. When's the last time, Vince, you heard a story about a ruckus being made because some woman who believes she's a man is being denied access to a men's bathroom? Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. And actually, there's another piece to this, in addition to what you referenced, which is some of the male proclivities, in particular for deviance. There's the other piece is that women aren't a threat to men, but the other way around they are. Men are a threat to women. And so there's a reason why we talk so urgently about this when it relates to men playing women's sports. If a woman joins a male sports team, nobody's complaining because she's not a threat to the safety and well-being of the people she's competing with and against. That's not what's happening. Whereas the other scenario is very much a threat. If you put a woman in a man's prison, that's, first of all, you shouldn't do that. That's a risk to her, not to them. And, of course, you put a man in a woman's prison, It's the other way around. So that's the reason why I think there's so much outrage around that particular formulation. But I think you're right fundamentally, too, that there's just deviance among men, and sometimes it comes out, manifests itself in the ways that we're talking about right here, Chris.
Right. It's like some type of subtle fetish, and they're going to do anything they can to try to carry it out and force you to be part of it.
Yeah. No,
I think Nancy Mace is 100% correct, and she should correct them every time they refer to that guy as a woman, regardless of what he thinks he is. Biologically, he's a man.
Yeah.
So there's no changing that.
And getting our country on the right track involves doing a lot of acknowledging of what's true and what's not. So that's critical here. Thanks, Chris. That's a good point. Yeah, no, how come we don't hear a lot about the other direction? Well, there's quite a few reasons for that. Let me see. Jeff Herndon, line 3. Jeff, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Well, hi, Vince. Hey, very great points. And you came right back. It is about victimization of women, and the women are threatened. And that's all. You're so smart, and that's probably because you spent so much time around Marines on a Marine base in a Marine household. So I would just want to acknowledge that.
I love the Marines.
So smart. Yeah, man, exactly.
I was just because you brought it up, and I'm going to steal a tangent for a moment. I just went to Quantico on Saturday to see my cousin become a Marine Corps officer, and I just want to use this moment to congratulate him. He graduated from OCS. He went into the Marine Corps. He enlisted first to get the experience of being an enlisted Marine before he became an officer, and he just concluded OCS. So congratulations and to Hayden Coglianese. And I do want to say that the country's better off with him in the Corps, so I'm really happy about that, Jeff. Sorry for jumping in, but it just made me think of it.
Oh, absolutely. And hoorah to Hayden Coglianese. And you know what? I that speaks to another pet rock of mine. We need more leaders who are willing to come up from the very ground up, learn how to get their hands dirty or get their hands on the machinery, on the parts, learn some credibility in that lower level before they become leaders. We've got way too much leadership concepts that totally erase the value of being on the ground for a while, But anyway, back to Mace and supporting Nancy Mace. Why are all the balls on this subject, and I don't know if you'll get zipped on us, but why are all the balls on this subject with the women who are the real women, defending women against men? We don't know. I mean, it is insane.
No, it's a good point. Why is it? It's such an excellent point. Why do all of the biological women, the real women here, have more testicular fortitude than many of the men who are actually supposed to be getting engaged in these debates?
I'm not getting. Aren't we supposed to defend women? And by God, if you don't think this is abusive to women, that's the other thing I felt for her, because she's saying the right things, but. The one thing she could have helped, it is nobody's abusing those people. It is this transgender ideology that is abusing women and is abusing our children. It is abusive to women, and it's got to go. It is going to go, but let's do it in a peaceful manner. Sure. I don't know why you can't just, that little bathroom is yours. Have at it, Make it yours. Bring some closets and you can live there.
Yeah, and no, Jeff, and your point is so well taken. The other piece of this is there are people who are the people who are considered, you were born in the wrong body. Somebody convinced them of that. Somebody enabled that.
Yeah.
And it's a form of abuse and torture, and we should say that out loud with some frequency, because the empathy here is essential. It has to be dedicated to making people convinced that their body's a gift. It's a gift from God. You are not a mistake, and don't let anybody convince you otherwise. Because in reality, what they're trying to do is trap you in a world where you'll never be satisfied by the so-called medical interventions. You will be dependent on them for the rest of your life. You will be enriching people whom you don't know, and you're going to be doing it at the expense of your psychological and physical well-being. So this is not a good path for you. You should not go down it, and don't believe the lies that are being fed to you.
Yeah, do not believe. I call that they're chasing rainbows. They're like, stop chasing rainbows, and especially stop chasing rainbows and trying to drag us, into your lives. Jesus Christ is going to help you. Let him into your heart. Figure out how that works for you. Make sure you feel that you will stop chasing rainbows. That's half the problem with people with these addictions, with all these other issues. They just can't settle into the reality, the truth. Not to get all preachy, but it's just sad to see. But then they're trying to drag the rest of us, which I do believe this is part of the big Marxist thing. It's really about they don't care about those transgenders.
No, preach, brother.
It's about dividing our country.
No, it's good. You should preach. It's a spiritual battle too. Jeff, thank you very much. I really appreciate the call and all the smartness very much. It is funny though. what was it, just last week that Congressman Seth Moulton, the Democrat from Massachusetts, right after the election, what was the lesson he took away from it? He said, hey, maybe this transgender stuff is like hurting us. Maybe this is because people are looking at it going, this is not normal. This is actually pretty bad. Seth Moulton came out and said, I don't want my girls, he's got daughters, I don't want my girls competing in sports against men. I don't want them to get hurt, he said. And what did the left do in reaction to that? Did they take a personal inventory? Did they do any soul searching? Were they, oh, Seth has a point. We should acknowledge what he's saying is real. No, they went crazy. They started calling him a Nazi. Members of his staff started quitting over this. It was like he committed a war crime. And so in some sense, you have a couple of people like a Seth Moulton who will come out and they'll hold their hand up for a moment and they'll say, hey, the emperor has no clothes. Hey, I want to be the one to point out reality for my side. And rather than everybody having an awakening like they do in the story of the emperor has no clothes. I love that story because everyone just realizes all at the same time. That one guy is right. Yeah, not for the left. That's not the way it works. That tale doesn't work. That guy who yells that out, he gets stoned to death. He's done. He's done for. And everybody keeps acting like the emperor's got a fancy new outfit. That's the way they're operating. And so they're going to stay wedded to this thing, and it's going to keep hurting them politically. Now, you and I could look at it if we wanted to be really cynical about it. Like, great, yeah, you stick with that stupid theme. It's really it's driving people away from you and your party. So that's great news because the Democrats don't have an agenda that's good for the rest of us. But real people are being hurt by this, though. That's the immense downside here. Real people are being genuinely hurt by this. And that needs to stop. And that starts with telling the truth really forcefully and really loudly. And I'm glad Nancy Mace is doing it today. President Biden's been wandering all over the planet. He was just headed up the steps of Air Force One, and reporters are screaming at him. They want him to take some questions. Of course, he won't because he's old and they won't let him. But here's what that sounded like. His birthday's tomorrow. That's the context for this clip. Oh, she sounded so desperate. It was like there was something heavy on top of her. Like, please save me. Please, somebody lift this rock off of my legs. She's screaming, for your birthday, will you talk to us? Can you please give us a gift? I don't know. He didn't even seem to acknowledge them. He's gone. His mind didn't accompany him on this trip. He just wandered up the steps of the plane. The short steps. They're not giving him the tall steps these days. He's got servants to carry him up to the upper deck of the plane. Yeah, so that's the current occupant of the Oval Office. Boy, he needs to go. Tomorrow's the 20th, is that right? I love that. That means we're 2 months away. On the nose. 2 months away. It can't come soon enough. Jason Miyares wants to get reelected as Attorney General of Virginia. He'll tell us why next.